Alrighty, I believe we are live.
Oh boy. Oh yeah, I see it. Oh,
Hello, friends.
I see
Welcome
something else
to
as
a
well.
first OSP After Dark stream in a little while. Hope you're all doing well this fine Monday evening. Just gonna go over to our live tab on our community page, make sure that all our settings are correct.
Yeah, so I see it, but I also see another one that is just our blank template. It's not live, but it's just blank summarized blank. It's offline,
Is this like
but it
publicly or in like the
yeah, I'm seeing it publicly, I think.
weird?
Hold on. I mean, I'm sure it's not a big deal,
I don't see it.
and
That's
probably not
odd.
something we should fuck with.
Yeah.
So, you know what? It's fine. It's fine.
Okay, let me get
Oh
our
boy.
settings correct here. Got to make sure that we've got our subscriber only chat on, and then get
Yes.
the slow mode for a nice little 30-second slow mode there. Great.
I might be quiet, but my audio quality is not going to be as high as it normally is on account of how I'm coming through a phone. But if my volume's a little low, you could always push me up a little bit.
Yeah, we seem
Great.
balanced. We seem
Cool.
balanced as far as I can tell. Can see
Good,
people
good, good,
coming in for
good.
chat. Very exciting, very exciting. How are you all doing this evening?
Yes, how's everybody cooking tonight? Oh man, we've had a very complicated week or so.
We have had a very complicated week or so. We've been busy. We've been doing
Yeah,
stuff.
we have. I'm so tired.
I got back
But
from a
you know, good.
multi-hour drive earlier this afternoon, probably no more than an hour before we're going live with this right now.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Let's see. All right, we're good. We
Yeah,
seem to be good.
I think we're good. I
Sorry,
don't see
things
as
are
a
happening.
stray video hanging out in our like videos tab.
Hold
I
on,
think
it
that
might
might
be
just be
gone.
like a glitch.
Nope, I still see it.
Still
It's
see
in
it? Uh-oh.
the under the live tab on our channel. That's where I'm seeing it. There's a
Okay,
blank summarized blank.
let me look. I'm investigating
It says live
chat.
stream
Don't
offline, but
worry.
that's all I got. It looks default in every way, and also my Wi-Fi is a little bit dubious.
I don't see
So,
it. I'm gonna take it as a
all
good
right,
sign that I don't see it.
I guess yeah, the phantom stream.
Yeah, that's okay. We're
Oh
we're here
boy.
today. We're having fun. How's everybody in
Mm-hmm.
chat doing? I asked like a minute ago and then did not look to see the answer because I was looking at other
I'm
stuff.
I'm seeing mischief and mayhem for the most part.
Oh, good, good, good.
I'm
I named
glad
my
we're doing more
fencing
chaos
sword
streams.
Mischief and Mayhem.
Oh
When
wow, of
I
course you did.
actually no, it was Murder and Mayhem because that's the line from Assassin's Creed 4.
That makes more
All of
sense.
us on the team named our swords things by like writing it on the inside along with our names, and like what
Wow.
club we belonged to. So in order of importance, it's which fencing club does the sword belong to. So if I find it like randomly in the tournament hall, like who do I bring it to? And then whose sword is it specifically in the team? And then what dumbass name did you give it? And my fencing sword was Murder and Mayhem.
Incredible.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the vibe would be a little bit different if the creed of the assassins was mischief and mayhem.
Hmm.
You know, I'll see her running around going hee hee hee.
Uh-oh, I'm just gonna go stab this Templar.
Just a little
Oh,
guy.
I'd be
Oh
so bad.
man, stop! You have to stop doing that bit.
I was doing the Shane top. Oh no, I hope a giant 6 foot tall lady doesn't come for me. Oh, that'd be so bad. Ooh, I was doing that like all of last week. I was a menace and I could not be stopped.
Lady Demiscrew is definitely higher than 6 feet. She's like 9 feet something.
Yeah, that's very fair.
Wasn't it? Wasn't it the character designer lady for Bayonetta who was like, Madame Demiscrew, Madam, would you interested in? And she was like, all I saw were her tweets about it. And she was like, the internet has informed me that they're putting me in horny jail,
Oh
and I have
no.
been bonked several times. I don't know. I thought it was very cute. Ah, jeez. I'm glad we're doing more chaos streams. These were like my favorite thing
They're
last year. But as
fun.
soon as I started doing like gamer streams, I was like, who's got time for chaos? I'm a gamer
Red
now.
became a gamer and had to do everything seriously and professionally.
Well, I became a gamer, so I had to dick around in a very restrained context of video game shenanigans. But
Yeah.
now that I'm out of Tears of the Kingdom and Switch still won't put Twilight Princess on Switch, I'm sort of running out of game ideas for now. So,
one thing at a time. But when we asked the patrons, they said they wanted more unrestricted chaos streams. So here we go, gang.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so we don't have plans.
No, we're just
when
here.
do we ever really?
I had to
just
do
here.
some setting adjustment because the last thing that we used this microphone for was a detailed diatribe we recorded last week, which I still have yet to finish editing, but that was super, super fun. I'm
Blue,
excited
can we
for
hear
that.
your messenger things coming
Oh,
through?
that is
You might need
exactly
to
what we
mute
can hear.
those.
Yeah, that was Indigo. Let me mute that. Might be. I should get one of those like 10 hours of silence broken by Discord pings.
was who was doing that stream where it was like they were using the metal pipe falling
That was Failboat.
as like punctuation? It was fail. No, it was somebody I watch. It was like either Doug Doug or Point Crow who did it.
Oh, it
at
also
some
would have
point
been Doug
recently.
Doug.
Okay, yeah, it feels like a Doug Doug
Yeah,
thing.
I saw Failboat do it recently. He had it was actually really really funny. Every time someone bought one of his plushies, because it was like the last like 3 hours that his plushies were on sale. Every time someone bought one, he had a counter that he could see. He would add another 10 hours of silence broken by blank. So by the end of the stream, it
No.
was just a cacophony of stuff. It's a really funny
Oh,
video.
wow.
I enjoyed it quite a bit.
That's great.
If we ever need to
Oh,
juice the
man,
pin
although-
sales, we can always do that and ruin our
No.
eardrums. No, 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 no.
My eardrums are already ruined because I saw Wicked the other day, and that
Oh,
was the
yeah.
loudest musical. I think we weren't that close to the stage, but I think we were close enough to
Yeah.
like the speakers, and I think they just had it cranked a little too loud because like by the time we got to intermission, I was like, I can feel that sort of like that fuzziness in the eardrums. Like they went back to normal afterwards, but it was a little alarming.
Yeah.
And they kept turning up the orchestra before the house lights were down, so I kept getting jump scared.
Surprise, motherfucker. That is
Yeah, I
hilarious,
guess.
though.
Jeez. It was pretty funny. Oh man. But yeah, Wicked was pretty good. I think that Hadestown has given me unrealistic expectations for how much choreography I expect
That is very fair.
in the middle of songs. And like, I know Wicked is an older musical, and it's very much like low on the stunts. You know, the closest you get is Glinda and her bubble and that one
Yeah.
defying gravity number, and they don't really let Elphaba like fly on stage outside of that. Which I understand. Like that's a huge hazard. Like there's I think it's a video by Lady Emily about Spider-Man Turn Off the Dark, the extremely failed Broadway musical starring
Yes.
the guy who later went on to star in Hadestown.
Oh,
It is a
I
very
didn't know
interesting
that.
little number on it. Yeah, I didn't know that either until I saw it, and I was like, what the fuck? Orpheus Hadestown? Anyway, so that was cool. But yeah, because that was so stunt heavy and had a lot of wire work. It's like something's gonna go wrong when you're doing 8 shows a week. So like,
Yeah.
just absolutely asking for trouble. But yeah, so I was a little bit surprised at how many songs in Wicked are just two people standing on the stage, frequently
Singing.
off center,
Yeah.
kind of just like emoting out towards stage or at each other. I don't
Yeah.
know. It was fine. I also liked how there was always one little flying monkey who would surreptitiously go behind Glinda and like clip her into the bubble so that she couldn't fall out.
Yeah.
Safety first. Oh man. All right, what's happening in chat? Hold on, someone saw Spider-Man Turn Off the Dark on Broadway in chat.
Oh, wow.
You have to share your wisdom. I feel like there were only like 10 shows. I mean, there were more, but wait till she finds out about Les Mis. Oh, I should see Les Mis on Broadway actually. Like,
Oh, yeah, that
I've heard
video
all
we did a
songs
couple
on it,
years
like-
ago. Yeah, that was fun. I never really remembered how it
Yeah, as we
ended.
all know.
Yeah.
experts on Les Mis. Yeah, we were barely through the Paris sewer system by the time we tapped out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I still don't know what diaphanous means, but that's okay.
Like see-through.
Oh.
Like a diaphanous gown is
Oh,
like
okay.
leaving nothing to the imagination.
Oh,
Yeah.
dear.
Oh no, is my mic cutting out? No.
I can hear you okay.
Okay, then it might just be the stream being uncooperative. Could you move a little closer to the mic, please? The mic is on my earbuds, 3 inches from my face. The problem is not on my end.
Adam says your mic's
Thank
fine,
you,
Red, so...
Thank you. But yeah, Wicked, I liked. It was more comedic than I expected.
Okay, yeah.
Also, significantly less gay. The internet has misled me once again. It's like, oh, Elphaba and Glenda, they've got such a good relationship. They spend the entire play fighting over a guy. Come on, gang. It's not gay. It's the opposite of gay. Literally. But I do understand, it's like fandom always creates the content that they didn't get from the original thing, which is why, like, fandom of a silly kids show is always deeply dark and scarring. And fandom for a dark and scarring thing is always like coffee shop AUs and everybody's okay version. So I get it, but, like, come on, guys.
Yeah. Nope. People say there is some internet fuckiness. I don't know, gang. I'm sorry. I had an internet fuck up before we got started here, and unfortunately Streamlabs runs like garbage on my laptop, and I don't know why. So I'm sorry. I'm gonna try to like.
And your laptop has way more memory.
Yeah, I'm gonna try to not like touch anything, and just hope that like not having any other tabs open will let us be good and chill.
Yeah, fingers crossed. Streamlabs never gives me this much trouble. And I was like, when's the last time you turned off your computer? And you're like, oh, like a couple weeks ago. It's like, well, that might be your problem right there. But if we restart, what if it makes us reset all our settings again?
Every time I open up Streamlabs, I have to manually re-input every single thing. It's ridiculous. Clearly, this is a problem that's unique to me and like my technology storm cloud over my head. But yeah, whatever.
Yeah. But it works on my end, so,
Yeah.
It's fine. I think if it was not working, really, we would be getting many more grievances. As things stand, we're getting some nice taters in chat, so everything's fine.
Lewis cursed to never have smooth streaming. Ain't that the way?
That's not fair. You already have a travel curse. We can't have an internet curse as well.
Why does Blue not have a crown? Because I don't have the PNG for it, and I couldn't be fucked to get it.
It's mine, all mine.
It took a solid 10 minutes to get that blue PNG in there, because when I opened up the Streamlabs menu of, like, add an image source, I typed in the exact file name of that little blue chibi, and Streamlabs was as if checking through every single file on my computer in order before it was like, yes, this one I will surface to you. Here, peasant. I'm like, fucking fine.
Very rude.
Wait a sec, this isn't a recording. No, my good friend, that is a stream.
Yep,
this is
we're
live
today. Isn't it fun? We're having a good time. I'm trying to get my brain in streaming gear, but there's been a lot happening. We were PAX East. That was really fun.
You were in PAX East, yeah.
Fucking slapped. Although technically we only went to 2 out of 4 days. Because we went on Thursday and we went on Friday. And then, I guess mild spoilers for an upcoming video, because we also talk about this there. On Saturday we went to a concert.
Yeah.
That we were invited to by somebody's close personal friend.
Close personal friend, friend of the channel, friend of the show, Austin Wintory, famed composer of Journey, Abzu, The Pathless, Assassin's Creed Syndicate, Banner Saga, and a whole bunch of other cool shit. Was kind enough to offer us tickets to his concert in the Northeast, right around PAX, so the timing was perfect. We did Thursday and Friday, and then drove over to New Hampshire Symphony in Symphony Center in Concord, and got to listen to a whole bunch of incredible music. It was so much fun from all across games. We talk about it more in an upcoming video, but if I can remember the set list, it was, let's see.
I have the paper somewhere, but it's not on
paper
right
somewhere.
Now.
It was Pokemon,
hold on. I think I still
Uncharted, Zelda, Journey, Nascence, and Apotheosis, One Winged Angel, both of which those last two were conducted by Austin.
The, virtual.
Oh, you've got it?
I have the virtual playbill.
Ah, yes.
Or at least I will once my internet cooperates.
That's okay. I remember the rest. Then after that, intermission was Mass Effect. Then, let's see. I think it was Mass Effect, Mario, Shadow of the Colossus, Prince of Persia 2008. Not an obvious choice, but a good choice. I really liked the variety that one brought. And then closing out with Halo. So it was basically the all-time hits. And it was so much fun. It was incredible. We had a blast listening to video game music live. The first time I've ever done that. And of course, getting to say hi to Austin was incredibly fun.
Yeah.
We had a great time, and it gave us the direct
Such a nice
inspiration
dude.
for an upcoming Detail Diatribe that you will all be able to see next Friday.
Oh yeah. Yeah. It was extremely cool. Um, let's see, what was the really notable one? I mean, they all kind of absolutely hit
You
in very
loved the
interesting ways.
Pokemon. That was a
I
great
think
opener.
that was the first one. Well, the thing is, I don't do much live music. I'm not generally like a concert girly, so I always forget how different it is to hear something live than it is to hear it, digitally, even through like good earbuds. It's a very different auditory experience.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've got this like thesis I keep coming back to that like every art form is the best at something. And it's like how prose writing is the best at telling you exactly what somebody is thinking. No other art form can do that without shortcuts or like, cues or visuals. Music is the best at directly making you feel something. Like music can just, bypass your brain and just make you feel an emotion. But it's more powerful when it's live.
Oh,
And
yeah.
it always throws me for a loop because I always forget that. And they started playing the Pokemon music, and I was there on the Smash Bros. Stage. Like, I have no nostalgia for Pokemon, but I do have nostalgia for that one Smash Bros. Stage.
Yep.
And it just hit, and I was in from that moment on. The other interesting thing I noticed is that the songs that I knew hit harder than the songs I didn't know.
Oh, yeah.
Like I'm
Always.
not as familiar with the songs from Mass Effect, and I didn't know the song that they played from Prince of Persia, so I was just kind of hearing them, and I was like, this is nice. But the ones where I knew what was coming, I was like, oh, yes, here we go. I'm forming opinions. For instance, they played the Prelude in Shadow of the Colossus, but then they played The Opened Way, which is like the music that plays when you're like riding around on aggro trying desperately not to get eaten or squished or whatever. And they played it at a slightly slower tempo than it normally is. And like I've listened to every song from that game multiple times. I used to listen to those like hour-long like extended versions that people would cut together on YouTube, where they just cut off the front and back of the song and just loop it basically.
I think you can actually just straight up loop it. You don't even need to do much cutting, because that's how they do it in the game,
in
right?
Those cases, exactly.
Yeah.
Sometimes they've got a cut off and end, but for the most part they don't. So I've heard them all multiple times, and I was like, it is interesting that they're playing this at a slower tempo, because that somehow makes me feel more drawn into it. Like I'm having to slowly calculate my approach rather than just sprint for it.
Yeah. It was great.
Yeah.
It was great.
So that was good.
Yeah.
Very fun, yeah.
Guest composer Austin
like halfway
Wintory.
through, I was like,
sorry, go ahead.
Mm-hmm. Well, halfway through, I was like, didn't a friend of mine say that there was some like Ghibli concert happening sometime? And I was like, yeah, whatever. Is that still happening? Am I too late? I should look that up right now. It's like, no, stop it. But
yeah, I wanted to give a shout to not just, of course, Austin Wintory, who conducted for Journey and One Winged Angel, but also Roger Kalia, the maestro of the Symphony of New Hampshire, who did a great job conducting all of the pieces, of course, but also gave a lot of really interesting little talks in between each piece, explaining where the music came from, what the inspirations were. It was just really great to hear his passion as well as Austin's in between all the pieces. So it was such a wonderful experience, and of course the joy of hearing it live was something else beyond what I could have possibly expected. Like I've gone to concerts before, I've heard stuff that I know, but it is something else when it's something that you grew up with, like a video game, and it feels like, yes, this is finally a concert for me. It's like, I've gone to, classical music concerts that I really enjoyed. I've heard, like Christmas songs and stuff like that live in concert, which was great. But hearing something that is like, yes, this is for a much smaller audience of music listeners than like people who've heard Christmas songs before. Like, this is music that I have loved so much in my years of being a music enthusiast, and now I get to hear it live was a little extra special, because it's so uncommon to be able to hear video game music live, but it is truly such incredible music, and it deserves to be played much more often than it is.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that video game music deserves more orchestration like this, because I feel so silly. There was like a 30th anniversary Sonic concert that happened, I guess last year or the year before, when it was the 30th anniversary. And it's like a 3-hour live stream, and I listened through it multiple times.
Yeah.
Because something about charming video game music, often initially played on like chiptunes, then reorchestrated for like a full band, it just hits me right here. It's like when the Game Awards always do that medley. The one year where they had Hades and like Doom and Animal Crossing New Horizons, and they're like building up and building up with all the electric guitars, and then bam, you get the most uplifting, cheerful little island music, but played on the full orchestra.
Yeah.
And I was like, why is this making me feel shit?
For me, the best of the video game award medleys, and they're always very good. I really like the one from 2018 because that was God of War, Spider-Man, Assassin's Creed, Odyssey, Red Dead Redemption. I think it was like a Monster Hunter in there as well. But hearing Assassin's Creed Odyssey on the like electric violin, just fucking wailing, is so good. I will go back like once every other month and just listen to it again because I'm like, this is so good. And the way each piece flows into the next is truly so goddamn good.
Yeah, it's a whole art form. What I think is very funny, specifically about the Sonic 30th anniversary stream, is that, of course, there's, orchestral music in Sonic, or at least there's like, wordless, fuck is the word I'm looking for. There's music that doesn't have singing. There's a lot of that in the early games.
Instrumental?
But, yes, thank you. Look, you know how busy the last few weeks
I know. That's why I offered that with no judgment. I just wasn't sure if that was the word you were looking for or not.
It was, thank you. But ever since Sonic went 3D, they've been going ham on the butt rock.
Yeah.
So the first half is like beautiful orchestration, and the second half was like live performances streamed in of like Crush 40 and the boys doing, Sonic butt rock live. And I was like, yay! So I'm not even that invested in Sonic as a franchise, except for the murder of Sonic the Hedgehog, objectively the best game they've ever made. But I felt shit. Man.
Yeah.
We made so many Tommy Tallarico references. I feel bad for Cyan.
Yeah.
I did at one point make her... Well, I didn't make her do anything, but I did go like, oh, this really fun video came out. We can watch that. We watched through 2 hours of Roblox Soup, and I was like, yeah, just as good as the first 7 times. And she was like, cool.
And we were driving somewhere together, the three of us, yesterday, and I brought up Tommy Tallarico, and Cyan's like, why is it whenever you two are together, you always fucking talk about Tommy Tallarico?
He's such a funny enigma to me, that's all. But the whole time we were like watching this live video game music performance, I was like, oh, Tommy Tallarico better watch the fuck out. Someone's coming for his totally real Guinness World Records. It wasn't even the last time we made those jokes, because we were also playing back through Shadow of the Colossus. And, I mean, that game takes a little while. Some of it's frustrating. There's a lot of empty space.
Yeah.
So we were just shitposting for a while, and the personality we developed for Wander was very weird.
That Wander is a sicko. That Wander is a sick man.
But at one point we just started making up accomplishments that he had done.
Yeah.
It's like, oh yeah, Wander, actually the first video game protagonist to feature in a Sonic the Hedgehog game. Before Sonic.
Yeah.
Oh, it was such a weird bit.
Wander actually invented Goombas.
Mm-hmm,
that's crazy when you think about it.
Yeah.
It really does make you
Mario. think. Yeah, Mario always wanted to work with Wander on the Colossus slaying thing, and it was a collaboration that they really wanted to do. And
yeah.
it fell through, but he did a lot of uncredited work on level 1.1. So.
Yeah.
It was such a...
There's actually, if you go left at the beginning of level 1-1, there's a much longer version of the level where you play as Wander, but it was so big and so incredible that it couldn't fit on the memory for the original NES cartridge, so they just had to cut it. So unfortunately, players never got to experience Wander's much better version of level 1-1.
I think I remember how the bit got started, actually, because you at one point asked, like, was this the first video game where you just, like, could freely ride a horse?
Oh, yeah?
And I looked it up, and it was like, no, that was Ocarina of Time. And if you count, like, other more niche games, it was a bunch of other things. But it was like, no, yeah, Wander was actually the first video game protagonist to invent the concept of riding a horse.
That's right. That's exactly how it happened.
Hell yeah. God.
This is an unhinged bit even for you too. Thank you, Adam.
Shadow of the Colossus does things to a motherfucker.
Jeez.
But we had such a good time.
We did.
Mostly. Stay tuned for
Stay tuned. Stay the
that.
fuck tuned, gang. Holy hell.
So somebody earlier on was like, Smash Bros. Stream, and it clicked. Like we were talking about something else at the time, but like I have been lamenting like, oh, if I had more things to stream on the Switch, I could totally stream because I don't have any other consoles right now. But it's like I do have Smash Bros. And I have been offering / threatening to do like a live Smash Bros. Thing because like the problem is we all love Smash Bros. But we all get so heated.
Yeah.
We all get so shouty, and it's like we don't want to say anything.
We're gonna say things we regret.
Yeah, we'll call each other names. So
sorry, Red, go ahead.
Fresh file, unlock all the characters again because I already did all the maps.
Roll the light.
Because I was just looking for my boy. I was just looking for Ike. He's like halfway through the second half of the game, and nobody told me. I was just like, where is he? I have to make do with Marth. Anyway, could be fun.
This reminds me of playing Star Wall, which we played a lot back in high school, where it was a similar process where it brought out elements of me that are bad. And we have a very good friend who is the sweetest, nicest person, and when he plays Star Wall, he becomes a menace. And so whenever I play Star Wall against him, I always end up calling him a slut. Nothing that he did character wise to ever warrant that, but it's just because he's on the wrong side of me in Star Wars that I'm also, like, you bastard, you slut.
We're also completely sex positive, and the concept of being a slut is not a bad thing. It is, however, a very funny word to yell at your friends.
It's that one syllable, powerful, simple sound you can just let out when you get stabbed and wish that you hadn't been.
That's slut. Yeah, it's a whole thing. So very funny times. The weirdest thing for me is that when we were playing Smash Bros. In high school in the senior lounge, I would always just start singing randomly. It was a stressful situation. I don't know how to explain it. So it could be very fun. Could also be very weird. Also, because Nintendo's online connection is never the greatest, we would have a lot of bullshit. My controller's broken. My network's at Nintendo. Could be fun.
I'm actually playing on a USB steering wheel.
Yeah, I mean, since I'd be the one streaming and hosting, the internet would only ever fuck up in my favor. So
yeah, that's fair. That's fair.
I no longer have objections. Actually, I think this could be great.
Actually, this is great. Yeah.
Yes. All right.
Oh gosh.
Jeez. Smash is so fun.
It is.
Nintendo has really not been missing. We were talking about this during a somewhat lengthy road trip over the past few weeks of stuff going on. We were talking about the console wars, and at some point it occurred to me, wait, hasn't Nintendo just been winning the entire time?
Yeah.
Nobody ever
since the Switch came out.
Because it's always been PlayStation versus Xbox, and Nintendo had a rough, few years when it was the Wii U or whatever, but but they've just been casually slow and steady, putting out extremely quality stuff, and not breaking the bank by doing it, and not crunching their workers, which is huge, and then not mass firing them, which is also huge. And then I was like, hey, wait, haven't they been in the game business since 1899? Isn't that why this is happening? And it's oh yeah, I guess this really is a slow and steady wins the race thing.
There was admittedly a very good video by Frost over on Second Wind today,
right?
Talking about how CEOs get rich making bad business decisions, which really does put a lot of this into perspective. Not to say that Japanese companies are immune to making dumbass choices, but a lot of the logic that would guide studios to make very short-sighted, terrible decisions for the sake of getting the bag and getting paid and getting out of there, are clearly the choices that Nintendo would not make. And their fuck-ups, of which there are a large amount in various ways, are rarely from that kind of burn the ship down to sell the planks for scrap kind of greed that you see with your Warner Brothers, your Ubisofts and stuff like that. So it's a very different kind of company, and they are not perfect. They make mistakes. They do shit that's obnoxious. They have a needly draconian stance on emulation that just hurts their community and is stupid.
Yeah, also
and I wish they didn't do.
Pokemon games have been getting crunched for some strange reason.
Pokemon games have been trash for a long time, but it still makes money, so they're not going to change that anytime soon.
Yeah, I guess.
Yeah, Switch 2 is rumored to be as powerful as a base PS4, and if that's handheld, that's going to be all they need, because as we've seen from the latest generation of consoles, it doesn't make that much of a difference going from PS4 to PS5.
Yeah.
You can load stuff faster, but it's essentially the same after that.
It's a weird thing. Because I know that game development takes several years, so this disconnect does actually make sense. But like when the pandemic hit and everybody was like, shit, the only thing I have to do now is play video games, basically, and like, console sales absolutely skyrocketed. It's strange that at the same time, it feels like I have not really seen a single PS5 exclusive game that, or like a large suite of them,
Yeah.
Like, I feel like there were a ton of PS4 games, but the only PS5 game I can think of is Marvel Sony's Spider-Man's 2 Sonic and Knuckles PS5, which wasn't that always also backwards compatible to the PS4?
It was not.
Only,
Miles
like,
Morales was backwards compatible, but Marvel Sony's Insomniac's Spider-Man 2 was just PS5
the Chaotix team.
Yeah.
Right, yeah. So that makes sense. Like, I get it, but it's just strange that, like, because at the same time, all these video game companies seem to be absolutely losing their minds because, like, oh no, big number go down, big number get smaller now.
Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, granted, that is very fair. I see some people pointing that out. That is not strictly first party. That's Square Enix, which is their own thing. It is exclusive to the PS5, absolutely, yes, granted. But it's not developed in-house by Sony, so it's different. There's like, your Naughty Dogs, your Insomniacs, your Sony Santa Monica's, and a handful of other ones like that are internal to Sony. We've only had one game from them coming out. Like, Sucker Punch has been theoretically working on a Ghost of Tsushima 2 for who the fuck knows how long. That's still nowhere to be seen. But anyway, sorry, Red, I interrupted you. My apologies.
Well, we were also talking about, oh man, I'm trying to remember what point specifically I was aiming at. I think it was interesting that when the pandemic hit and everyone was like, suddenly skyrocketing the sales of all these video game, creators, we didn't really get a corresponding jump in, like, hey, while we're here, maybe we can re-release some of our back catalog so people can like pick those up and play them or something like that. Instead, we're kind of looking at like what console got the most like acclaimed games in the last few years, and it's like it's the Switch, because the Switch is also the host for all these indie games that keep breaking out and being incredibly good, and getting cult followings. And like, to my knowledge, you cannot like indie develop for the PS5 or Xbox or am I missing any?
You can, but it's harder. They have more stringent guidelines for what goes on their store, which, granted, is a benefit because there is a lot of just kind of like, shovelware nonsense on the Switch store, as there is on Steam. Not quite as bad as Steam, because you can put whatever the fuck you want on Steam.
True.
It is much less of a space that curates that kind of indie presence. So,
yeah. Yeah, I don't know. It's weird to think about because this isn't something I really pay attention to very much, so I only have a very outside perspective on it. But I think the last time I remember being like, oh, we're still doing console exclusivity was when we were looking at that upcoming Indiana Jones game. Because like that thing got announced like within a week after the Uncharted detailed diatribe went out, and we were talking about like, it's really good that they let Uncharted end, like in a satisfactory fashion. But man, I would love more adventure archaeology games where you get to play as an adventure archaeologist. And then Bethesda was like, hey, we found a way to reskin the Skyrim engine again. You want to see? But it actually like looked good. And we were like, well, fuck, this would be a great thing to stream. What consoles is it on? And it's like only ones we don't have, and to PC, a thing we don't stream from. It's like,
well, Cyan's got a PC that we could theoretically use, so this is not to say that there's no such thing as an indie game on the Xbox ecosystem. Adam raises the point of Game Pass, which has a lot of those AA games that are very good. So we're not saying like, oh, Nintendo is perfect and all the other games are stupid, but to say in terms of like the banner kind of like headline games that made the PS4 as successful as it was, you are not seeing a lot of those nowadays because of the way that game dev has changed. Not trying to make a totalizing statement, because as a lot of the games analysis and media over the past year has shown, there is a lot of very complicated stuff that goes into making games and a lot of multifaceted decisions that cause things to go one way or the other.
Mostly, I just want them to re-release Twilight Princess for the Switch already.
Yeah.
Come on, guys. The thing is, if Switch 2 is coming out next year, it's probably not going to come out till Switch 2, which is fine. It's fine. I'm not mad. I'm a little mad.
Yeah. And then there was that Marvel
Games are fun.
Overwatch game that
Oh
showed up out of
yeah,
nowhere.
yeah.
Yeah.
We just saw the trailer. We were talking about how that is such a genius bit of theft. like truly the all right. You guys had your chance. Let a real professional show you how you do a colorful, multifaceted cast of characters with wildly disparate move sets.
Yeah.
Out of the way, bitch boy. And suddenly we get it's just our Overwatch. It's so clearly just the Overwatch engine. I mean, clearly they rebuilt it from parts, but like it's Overwatch. It even looks like
It's an Overwatch facsimile.
Yeah, but with Marvel characters, which does a ton to spackle over the problems that Overwatch has been developing. Because like, this has been baffling and pissing me off for literal years at this point. Because we were like, were we still in high school when they started dropping Overwatch character trailers, or was that college?
Overwatch came out in 2016.
Okay, so that
so
would
I think
have
the original trailers
college.
would have been like 2015, right after we got out. So
right.
yeah.
So it was like sharing it in the group chats or
Yep.
like bringing it up over. Yeah, because
Yep.
I know we talked about them and they looked so goddamn cool. Like I remember the one where I was like, "Oh shit, I get it." Was the one with oh fuck. The ninja guy and his brother, you know, the
Genji and
ones.
Hanzo?
Yeah, that one. Where it's like, oh, the aesthetic is good, the drama is good. This is pretty cool. And it's got this really interesting narrative, and like, sure, the gameplay has absolutely nothing to do with any of this story because it's just a TF2 clone at that point. But like, there's a lot of potential here. I would love to see what they do with this when they start exploring the characters and plot more. So then they didn't do that. Like,
oh well.
Yeah, and we were talking about like why wouldn't they? Because they were making comics for a while, and then they like balked, and they were like, none of these are canon. Actually, just kidding. And also, the trailers aren't canon either. They're in-universe propaganda movies.
Yep.
Just for some fucking reason, and it's like, well, okay, so are you gonna like greenlight a single-player story mode? And they were like, oh, totally, yeah.
That's Overwatch 2. Get excited.
Yeah, buy Overwatch 2 specifically.
Well, it was free. It was a free upgrade. Give them that credit. Overwatch 2 was a free upgrade.
Oh, really?
Yeah. It discarded a lot of your progress if you had like loot boxes and game currency and stuff like that, and you had to buy a bunch of whole new cosmetics with a much more predatory monetization system. But credit to them, Overwatch 2 was a free upgrade.
That sounds free with a big asterisk next to it.
Because otherwise no one would buy it because it was worse.
Yes, of course it was. So that was cool. And then it's like, so when are we getting that single player story mode where you let us know what the plot is? And they were like, what? We can't hear you. You know, maybe they made it free because otherwise it's literally fraud to do that.
Chad is saying free
Like,
downgrade, and honestly, that's probably accurate.
Oh no!
Every once in a
I
while,
my copy of iMovie when I wasn't paying attention.
Yeah,
they re-upgraded it to make it shittier.
Yeah, every once in a while, when I just want to have some catharsis, I watch through the saga of Donkey's videos following the development of Overwatch 2, and it's like, oh wow, you guys fucked this bad.
Oh, I should do that. But it's like they had the potential for a free money printer. People were so invested in these characters. No, I shan't say. They did some interesting things to the space of online animation, and that's where I'll leave that. But no, don't.
I'm not. Don't worry, I'm not.
Okay. So, and like everyone was so invested. The characters had interesting dynamics. They had cool backstories. We wanted to know more about them, but it was a specific like storyless game mode that didn't allow for any, development. And like TF2 was doing that for years, but TF2 also had comics that were like, yeah, I know you can blow up an identical copy of yourself on the battlefield. We're not really going to discuss that, but the world of the comics is absolutely insane. So there's all kinds of reasons for why something like that shit might have happened. So it's not really going to feel all that weird. Anyway, here's the plot about how Sniper is secretly from the lost island of New Zealand, which is Atlantis. Anyway, and they slapped. They ruled. They were so good, and I was so invested in them. And then Overwatch had the potential to do that, but seriously. And then instead, like, I remember I asked you about this because I was like, hey, wait, what the fuck happened with Overwatch? And you were like, they put all their, they doubled down super hard on esports. And then the esports scene kind of dried up.
Yep.
Yeah. So
they wasted all their money on an esports league that was way overdeveloped and was ultimately just like every... sorry, hold on.
Oh,
Okay, I'm pulling up chat on YouTube because Streamlabs live chat does not let me mute people, and there's someone who's spamming who I want to time out.
oh yeah, yeah.
Um, but yeah, they had a very ill-conceived Overwatch League, which was entirely supported by cryptocurrency, like every other esport. So then, when that crashed, it all fell apart.
Yeah. So the fact that Marvel just like showed up and was like, "Hey, nice game concept. Mine now." It's like, "Yes, thank you." Because that's so fucking smart. You already have a stable of characters with wildly diverse movesets and power levels, and if you're making a game where balance isn't really an issue, like team balance is the concern, not individual balance, you might actually create a superhero game that kind of captures the vibes of a superhero comic, which thus far I haven't really seen. Admittedly, I haven't been looking very closely, but like a superhero game that isn't a story game is the thing that I think is crucial. Like you can
Yeah.
just throw a bunch of characters into an arena and be like, all right, guys, go nuts, have fun. Because I remember the moment this clicked, because we were comparing it to the last time I remember, like, oh, we saw somebody take a game concept and just reskin it with superheroes, and I didn't love it. And it was when they made Injustice Gods Among Us, which is just like the Mortal Kombat engine, but with DC characters, basically. And they have to explain in the story, like, we gave everybody a pill that makes them Superman levels of tough so that we can justify punching everybody through the same set pieces so that we can make it seem like fucking Green Arrow versus Superman is an equal battle that could be won by either participant, because it's a fighting game and it needs to feel balanced.
Yeah.
And it's like, sure, but boy, does that lose a lot of the vibes of superhero comics, where literally the main thing that makes them fun is that everybody is so differently weird and everyone has completely unique strengths and weaknesses. So every fight is a completely different experience.
Someone says apparently NetEase didn't pay several of the devs for that Overwatch Avengers game. I ultimately would not be the most surprised.
No.
NetEase is not the most scrupulous of developers, which I didn't realize until yesterday that the game was made by NetEase, which is like, nuts.
What's NetEase?
It's a development company from China that's had a few games come out so far, which had very aggressive monetization, bordering on pay to win, which is unfortunate. The game can still be good and it's still a genius concept, but it was like, oh, dang it. And I forgot until someone commented just then. I was like, shit, it is made by NetEase. I put it out of my mind as soon as I saw it yesterday.
Oh, that's unfortunate.
Well. Anyway, we don't need to hang on the Overwatch Avengers game for too long. It's just thinking about Overwatch makes me sad. It used to be so much fun. Oh well.
It's so wild to me because at any time they could just start doing the story. They could just start telling it however they wanted. Comic form, miniseries, dumber shows have been greenlit. They could just choose to do that whenever they wanted to start making money again. I don't know. Maybe the rights are tangled up.
I couldn't imagine. It has to be Blizzard's own. And we're getting into speculation here, so we can. What else can we talk about that's a little more fun and uplifting than video game capitalist fuckery?
Good question, because my brain immediately jumped to literature capitalist fuckery, and that's not much better.
Do you want me to stop you? I can.
Well, I mean, I was just going to mention, I was watching one of Daniel Green's videos about that, the company that had the adaptation rights to Wheel of Time. And by company, I mean the two dudes who had the adaptation rights to Wheel of Time and are still somehow attached to it. Yeah, those guys. Yes, there is no fundraiser on this one. We did not put one together because we put this thing together in about 10 minutes.
Yeah.
You're not missing it. Don't worry. Well, let's see if Chet has any ideas. How about how Game of Thrones will never be finished? Game of Thrones might still be finished. I think that I feel bad for George R.R. Martin. Like, we've known for decades that one of the most disheartening things that a fantasy author can get is a bad adaptation of their work. Like, again, I think Daniel Green has a video about Dominic Noble has a video about this. Actually, Daniel Green might also have a video about it. There's like a really whitewashed adaptation of Earthsea that came out decades ago and sucked, and Le Guin was so upset. But in a very like kind of, I've been around the block a few times, I know how this works, kind of like resigned way, where it's like, yes, I have a vision and I write a book and people like it for all sorts of reasons. And then the people adapting it are like, well, we don't think anyone's going to like your story. So we're going to change it in a bunch of ways that makes nobody who liked my story like the changed one. And then they're like, oh, it's unprofitable. I guess we'll never do this again. So get out of here. So there's a bunch of those. And like, I think the rug pull of Game of Thrones was especially cruel to George R. R. Martin, because the first 6 seasons, when they still had books to adapt, were like solid. But then instead of just being like, hey, we're going to put this on pause until he writes the rest of the books, like, they couldn't do that. It was the most profitable and popular show in the world.
Yeah.
So they had to just kind of, filler arc their way through and make it through on their notes. And they made something that was shitty because they were bored of it, and they explicitly said they wanted to move on to other projects, which is a terrible vibe to have when you are finishing a project. Yeah. And now I just feel really bad for him, because like, George R. R. Martin, like, he got 6 good seasons adapting his story, but then it ended so badly that everyone was like, ew, let's not even think about this series anymore. And like, he's still attached to it. It's still his baby. Like, he clearly still cares about it. But how disheartening must that be?
Oh,
like,
yeah.
and creative effort is very much an inexact science, and a lot of it comes from like motivation, and you frequently need time to recharge the creative battery, and deadlines can make it harder to do that, and pressure can make it harder to do that, and fan response can make it harder to do that. And now he's got like the cruelest possible turnaround from like millions of people around the world are watching this and loving it, to millions of people around the world hate how this story ended and are basically disowning it, and you still have to write the last couple books. Like, I hope he finishes it. I think it'll be a tragedy if he doesn't. I'm not going to pressure him about it. I'm not making any jokes about like, oh, he'd rather do anything but write those books every time like we see him doing anything with his life. It's like, come on.
Let the man
writers
live.
writers aren't fucking chained to their typewriters. They're allowed to leave. And nobody's entitled to his work. He chooses to share it with the world, and he has all the reason to not do that anymore. And it bums me out, and I feel like I don't see people talking about that. But like, the person who was most thoroughly screwed over by this was George R. R. Martin. Like the actors obviously didn't have a great time filming the last couple seasons, but like, they're all young, hot actors who now have a really, really strong thing on their resume and are showing up in a bunch of other stuff. George R. R. Martin is the one person who basically gained nothing except like money for the adaptation rights. And in my experience, most creators like having money, but after a certain point, it's just kind of like, yes, but it's not personally fulfilling in the same way that seeing my vision realized is,
Exactly.
So
I'm sure you can take some solace in having contributed to one of the best games of the last few years being, of course, Elden Ring, which he did a lot of the background lore for. Where I think the way that they did it was George wrote the stuff that happened like from the beginning of the universe to like 100 years before the events of the game, and then the narrative team at FromSoft went from there, essentially. So it's like, that's a cool way to handle it. That's really cool. And apparently the new DLC, Shadow of the Erdtree, will get into a lot more of the backstory and the stuff that George was writing that didn't make it into the original game. So that's really cool. And I hope that he's excited about that, because people fucking love Elden Ring. It's great. I'm glad that everyone's having so much fun with it. But yeah.
Huh.
Someone commented, how are we liking Dungeon Meshi? I have only seen 3 episodes, but I liked it a lot.
I'm also really liking it. Sorry, there was a comment that I'm sort of not sure how to respond to, just because it's interesting, which is that George R. R. Martin has become a millionaire off leveraging the series to get other projects greenlit. He does owe people the books. I mean, the first part is a fact that I agree with. I don't think it logically leads to the second part. I'm kind of the opinion that there are almost no circumstances where anybody owes anybody anything. I think that most things are not exchanges in that way, And as an artist, I am extremely wary of any precedent that demands an artist deliver a specific art project, which is why I don't work for anybody. This is very much a me thing. But I think that the idea that an artist ever owes anybody their work is a very icky thing a lot of the time, especially because creativity is such a raw and soulful process, where in many cases it's like you're taking something very deep and profound within yourself and you're finding a way to share it with the world the way you want to. It's ultimately 100% the choice of the artist.
Yeah.
That's what makes the art good. I don't think that George R. R. Martin, under any circumstances, except if he was in a contract that he had agreed to deliver the final 2 books. Yeah, sorry. Yeah.
No,
I anyway.
completely agree. Yeah, I think also that logic would lead to the kind of thing where, okay, say he does finish it, you know, Tamari, Shadow drops the next 2 books. Holy shit, amazing. That same logic of he owes the rest of the story would immediately be leveraged into, well, I didn't like what he did, so therefore I'm still going to give him shit because I'm not happy with it. I think that not to put any shade on the person who commented this. It's an idea we're discussing. We're not calling anybody out. It's important to think about these things out loud, chew on the ideas, see where they lead us, and then reevaluate. But that logic of the author or the creator, whatever medium it might be, owes the community. Let's not even say owes me. Owes the community the conclusion to this thing very quickly turns into the creator owes the community, by extension me, what I want the ending to look like. And it is entirely valid to say, you know what, this story ended in a way I didn't like. That's fine. But the same logic of finish the thing, will immediately flip to, oh, well, yeah, but, you know, I didn't like that. You should have taken more time on it. So it is an understandable reflex to have that position. But I caution against giving into that logic too much because it does not lead anywhere good. Even if it seems like, yeah, you know, I guess that does kind of make sense. Like, they got rich doing this thing. They didn't get rich by promising an ending to these books. They got rich by writing books that were good enough that you are interested to see how they end.
Yeah, like, this would be a little bit of a different matter if he had, like, and he might, I don't know, if he had a specific, like, publishing deal where it's like, here is your advance, you get, like, half now, and you get half on delivery of the finished books. That is frequently how it works in the publishing world, to my understanding. And that is a contract where he does owe a finished book to the publisher so that they can sell it and make Mondo money and then give him some of it. And that very well may be true, in which case, you know, he does owe the book to the publisher, but he doesn't owe it to the fans. You know, he owes it to the publisher because they have a contract, and that's what a contract is for. This is also why, like, this is a conversation that I think it's very interesting when it comes to independent creators that are, like, funded by Patreon or Kickstarter or something like that, which are 2 very different things, very different, you know, structural rules, but they get conflated in certain ways. For instance, like, the way that our Patreon is structured, it's very much like, hey, we're not twisting anybody's arm, and the tier rewards are pretty, like, chill. We had versions of the Patreon where it's like, I draw a chibi for $20 patrons, and I did not like doing that because then I owed people art and I had to sit down and do it no matter how I was feeling or how interesting the design was to me or not interesting, as the case may be. And this is why I don't work for people, you see? Because it does not jive with the way my mind works. But the way that our Patreon is structured is very much aimed to be like, we're going to do what we do. And, you know, if you like that, you can support us. We're never going to, like, you know, try and lure people in or twist anybody's arm, God forbid. But on the flip side, you get things like Kickstarter projects where it's like, that is a contract. It's like, if we hit our funding goal, we will deliver this product. And when Kickstarters get overfunded or when the parameters of the project change, that's a much dicier affair because it is much more of a contract-shaped situation than other forms of crowdfunding, which I've seen cause some stuff. I think I was rewatching the Sarah Zed videos about Homestuck 2 the other day, where she talks about the Kickstarter funding for, I think it was the Homestuck game, and said something which stuck with me, which is like, crowdfunding your project is not a way to be, I'm losing words, is not a way to be like, to have, it's not a way to have nobody have control over you. It's a way to have thousands of people have, you know, it's not a way to owe nobody anything. It's a way to owe thousands of people something. That's not the right word, so I'm sort of dancing around the exact phrasing I wanted, but you get my point. And yeah, I don't know. Blue, do you got any thoughts on this? I feel like
No, I think you're making a very good point that there are different structures of commerce.
Accountable, yes. Thank you. It's accountable. It's not a way to be accountable to nobody. It's a way to be accountable to thousands of people.
Yeah. No,
Yeah.
I think the point about different structures of commerce have different like built-in rule sets. Or even a specific of like if your Patreon is monthly or by every creation, there's a different
Mm-hmm.
implied agreement between the audience and the creator. And then take
Yeah.
that to crowdfunding, take that to buying individual books. Like, if Game of Thrones was sold as early access, buy these 9 books now and you'll get them as they release, that's very different.
Oof.
That obviously is not what happened, but it feels as if a lot of people have that mentality, as if they've invested their time into reading, therefore you can't leave me hanging, I'm invested. It's understandable. It's very
Mm-hmm.
understandable, but that was not the commerce that was conducted. You
Yeah.
bought the
And of
books
course,
as they released, and that was it. Again, not to put anyone on blast. It's a
no,
very
yeah, yeah, yeah.
understandable reflex to want the thing that you are excited for. But
Yeah.
it very quickly can get into dangerous territory where people develop unhealthy habits, fan bases become toxic, there becomes a very adversarial relationship with a community and a creator. There's a lot of a lot of jokes made about the long-suffering Hollow Knight fans waiting for Silksong. They're a very patient fandom. There are a lot of other fandoms that are nowhere near that patient, that have resorted to harassment and all kinds of other shit long before
Yeah.
we get to how long people have been waiting for Hollow Knight Silksong. So it is a
Yeah.
kind of fan reaction that can become horribly toxic very quickly if left unchecked, starting from a very reasonable basis of, I want this. What is in the way of me
Yeah.
having this thing I want? And it's very easy to project the creator is lazy, the creator is greedy, yada yada yada, and it goes from there.
Well, more than that, there's also there's the way that fandom works fosters very readily parasociality and feelings of entitlement. These are things that arise from just fandom communities. And I mean this not as a negative thing. I think that it's a good thing and a bad thing at the same time. It's just a thing. They cannot be separated. The elements of fandom that drive such overwhelming love of the work that is being fandomized is the same thing that leads to I love this story so much. I want to eat it. I want to understand it on a profound level. I want to know everything about it. I want to know more about the people who made it. I want to be connected with it. Parasociality is in there. And if you're not careful, it just comes with the rest of the baggage. And I love this story so much. I want more of it is the other side of the feeling of entitlement. As soon as that goes from I want this to I should have this, or how dare you keep this from me, those are not terribly separate concepts, but they lead in very different directions. And as soon as you add, like I mentioned, the element of crowdfunding, there's a little logical point that feeling of entitlement can hook onto to reinforce it. Of like, you do owe me. I was like your first Twitch subscriber or something. Like, sorry, there's a fucking real-time fan dub where the plot that generated out of it was just about this point.
Jesus Christ.
I didn't. It you saw the "Hey Shadow, it's me, the devil." That's how that resolves.
Is that? Oh my god.
Yeah, it's like I was your biggest fan. I was your first subscriber. None of it. I did. Guys, I've tried. I haven't been able to get them to sit down and watch any of the just full 2-hour videos, but I have watched those 15-minute compilations, and none of them made the part where Eggman responds to that screed by going, "Jesus Christ, parasocial! You need to log off."
That's funny. That's really
but,
funny.
But yes, that's how that resolves. But it is a legitimate thing that this, all the George R. R. Martin, haha, he should finish the books because I want him, or haha, he'll never finish the books. Part of the reason why it kind of unsettles me is it ties into this same space of he owes us. He made money off of the books he's already written. Therefore, he owes it to me to write more books that he hasn't already made money off of.
Yeah,
because some other guy fucked with him.
Yeah, there's something that a channel that I really like and respect, Inside Games with Lawrence and Bruce. They're great. I love their videos. They always say, if you don't like how the thing is going, don't spend money on it. If you don't feel satisfied with how Game of Thrones is going, don't spend money on any Game of Thrones thing until you have the opportunity to exchange money for the good and service you are looking for. It's difficult because it's a fandom that we're excited about, but that is the way that you vote with your wallet. So it is ultimately frustrating, yes, of course, but if you're not satisfied with a thing, no one's making you stick around. There's some people who are making a good point, commenting that Silksong was originally promised as DLC for the original Hollow Knight, so there's a sense of, hey, money was exchanged for this promise. Okay, let's take it in the context of things. They released the base game, and it was incredible. Most Kickstarter games are shit. They released 2 or 3 DLCs between the Hive, the Grim Troop, and I think like one other one. And they are abundantly working on Silksong. It's not like they've dropped off the face of the earth, took the money, and ran. And even still, that's a very small portion of the pie to take the money and run for, compared to the like abundant promise of a payday when they actually release the damn thing. So there's a difference in tone between someone's been stagnating on a project for years and years and years for whatever reason that might be, and someone is clearly hard at work but doesn't want to show off too much because things change in development, things can move around. You don't want to promise people the world and then have them get excited too much to the point where expectations run rampant. It's tricky. I'm not pretending to have all the answers here, but it is very much a case-by-case basis where tone and context matter a lot. It's not just, like fucking Immanuel Kant deontology of like the rule has to be true in all circumstances all the time or else it's not a rule that we can follow. No. It's always dependent on context. So I don't want to linger on this too much and make it a moralizing hour about being nice to authors and stuff, because there are some times where people are acting kind of grifty. They take the money and run. They promise something they don't have any intention of delivering. You can usually tell that.
Yeah.
More than like, okay, this is just someone who's taken their damn time. And
yeah, but that's also why I think creators need to be really wary about taking money for a thing they're not sure they can deliver.
Absolutely.
Like
absolutely.
Yeah. I don't know. I think there's a very interesting space of conversation here, but like I've seen this from the fan side and the creator side, and like it's a very interesting space. And fandom is a very different space than creator spaces, as it should be. I think that fandom spaces and creator spaces need their separation, or the parasociality risks getting really, really bad in both directions. This is something that I don't see brought up a lot, because like we're kind of on the, we're on the side of things where it's like, if we had casual conversations with absolutely every fan we had, it would be our full-time job because there are 2 million people.
Yeah.
That kind of thing. But there's a similar kind of weirdness that happens if a creator winds up in a fandom space. I've been sort of seeing some stuff about this, just like stories about like, oh, this writer read a review of their book and took it like really personally, like that kind of thing. Which is again I think a bad manifestation of a neutral fact, which is that if you create a work of art, you're kind of carving out your soul and bearing yourself to an audience of people and really hoping that people understand it and like it. And then seeing someone be like, 2 stars, kind of shitty. You're like, oh, come on, explain yourself. Like it is a real raw emotional reaction, which is why the rule of thumb is that writers should not read reviews. Like this is like the rule of thumb that I've been taught my whole life,
Yeah.
You should not seek out reviews of your stuff, which is also why this is an interesting point of confusion I see sometimes, where people are like, hey, I provided unsolicited feedback on how I think you can make this thing better. And it's like, that's cool. I'm not going to read it because I didn't ask you and I don't know you, like that kind of thing. It's like that's the kind of thing that you get from beta readers and writers workshops and like your class of art students. That's the point of those things. You go there to get better. You don't put your work online or out into the world so that Joe Rando can be like, hey, noticed your thing. Here's how I would have done it. Like, that's great. That's a great thing to live in the fandom space and to not go straight to the writer. And I see people get confused about this because it's like, well, what do you mean? Like, I'm helping them. And it's like, you're trying. I completely understand and respect that. But in this specific context, criticism is secretly like 5 different things in a trench coat, and they're all completely differently aimed, and it all gets bundled together in the online space.
Yeah.
And I've been thinking about this a lot recently. I was thinking about it so much, I wrote up notes.
Nice.
Let me see if I can find them. The thing is, I was thinking like maybe I could turn this into a video at some point, and it might still turn into a video, but it wouldn't be really anything that's like any of the existing series we
Real
have.
quick, while you're looking for that, I'm going to call out and agree with something someone said, which is that crowdfunding is gambling. Yes, crowdfunding is gambling.
Ooh,
you are paying money for something that
yes.
is not done, and you are banking on the fact that it will be done eventually to a somewhat satisfying state. There's a difference between going into a video game store and buying a game that's on the shelf that has reviews that you can check to see if it's good or not, or buying a book that's already on the shelf that you can like flip through and be like, oh, there's words inside of this. Cool, cool, cool. Versus paying money for the promise of something later. If at any point you pay money for something that does not yet exist, you are taking a risk. And you can trust and hope and pray that the creator, whether they're an author, game developer, whatever, will be able to complete the thing. But you are taking a risk because the thing that you are exchanging money for does not yet exist. So in the case of like, again, Hollow Knight, it's like, okay, crowdfunded game. Most of them are dog shit. This one was great, and it had 4 free DLCs. You won. You got what you could have hoped for and more. Great. We'll loop back around to this conversation when Silksong comes out. But like everything that is on crowdfunding is fundamentally a game of taking risks and hoping that it turns out to be good when it is done. Very different from spending money on something that is already finished.
So I have to shout out the comment. How funny would it be to bring home a book and only the first 30 pages have words on them, though?
Honestly, yeah.
That would be fucking hilarious. Just like rest of story pending. Oh man. Okay, so I found my notes. I was just thinking about like different things that all get bundled together as criticism, and like which ones of them are like the kind that I like doing and stuff like that. So the first one is editing a story. The goal of that is, how do I help make this story the best version of what the storyteller wants it to be? Which is not, what story do I wish they were telling instead? This is apparently something that a lot of writers need to learn early on when they're participating in writers' workshops. I feel like I've seen Brandon Sanderson talk about this as like an early thing he had to internalize is like, I get presented like a story to edit, and it's not, how would I change this were I the one writing it? It's, how would I change this to make it a better version of the story they are writing? Yeah. Which are 2 very different things and require, a knowledge of the author's intent, which is why this is a writer's room thing and not something that you can really do after the fact when you don't have a direct line to what the author was trying to do, Like, I take guesses when I analyze where it's like, this is very clearly an author tract. Some authors make it easier than others, Robert A. Heinlein.
Yeah.
But, it's all kind of guesswork. Then, God damn it, my phone keeps going to sleep. Then there's dissecting a story, which is what I like doing, which is, how did the storyteller do this thing? How can I learn from the way they did it? Did they do things that I think didn't work? Do I see ways I think they could have made it more effective? Can I learn from what I perceive as their mistakes to refine my own techniques and style? It's about taking a thing apart and seeing how it works. And sometimes that translates into, I think this part didn't work well, or I think this part worked really well. But it doesn't really turn into a values judgment of the original so much. Like the closest it really gets is, this didn't work for me, but it was clearly like doing it on purpose.
Yeah.
Which is how I feel about like the show Centaur World. I watched both seasons of it. I think everything it did was on purpose for what it was trying to be. I just was not the target audience for it and didn't really get it. Like, it seems well crafted for what it is, and the music in the first season is incredible, but I can't really say I enjoyed it because I kept perceiving things as flaws that were clearly intentional on the part of the writer, that kind of thing. And then reviewing the story, which is, what parts of this did I like? What parts didn't I like? Why? How much of it was to my tastes? Reviews are a very, very subjective thing, and they are very much like, how did I feel about this thing? What did I like? What didn't I like? And that turns into a star review. This is why Goodreads keeps getting all these crazy scandals, because Goodreads is supposed to be like a hub for this kind of review, where it's like, here's my thoughts on the book. Here's my list of books. Here's my personal rankings of how much I enjoyed them. But it's a public forum, so it automatically feels like recommendations or values judgments, or dare I say, objective criticism, even though it isn't. So you have to have, these reviewers keep getting like well, in certain cases, like attacked by writers who are like, how dare you criticize my book in this way, when it's completely fine to have an opinion, but it's kind of dubious if that feels like it's not an opinion, and then you have to be like, no, it is just an opinion. Like when I said that this book was stupid, all I meant was that I thought that, you know. like obviously after a certain point you got to stop caveating shit where it's like, yes, everything I say is an opinion and might be wrong and disproven later. Like I was reading Adam, on your recommendation, if you're still in chat, I was reading Children of Ash and Elm, and one thing I really liked in that was that the writer at one point was just like, look, this is a constantly evolving field and shit is constantly coming to light and being proven or disproven, and I cannot say in front of every fact that maybe it's wrong. So just assume that about everything, okay? Moving on. And I was like, God, that's so fucking relaxing.
Next.
Because that's how I feel. Anytime I like make a video, I'm like, if I caveat everything I say with like, hey, this might be incorrect or disproven later, like, the fuck am I going to be doing? The video's going to be twice as long. Anyway, so out of the 5 things that live in criticism, and I'll pretend to be the same thing, the 4th one is critiquing a story, which I think is the potentially spiciest one, because it is attempting to make like values judgments on how effectively the story pulled off what it did. It's not quite the same as editing the story, because of course editing, again, frequently critiquing is involved in that, but editing is specifically in the context of like, hello, fellow professional writer / peer who I trust, can you help me work on this story? Like, that's editing. Critiquing can come from anybody, just might not be the most useful thing in the world. And then fanficking a story. Here's what I wanted from this story that the storyteller can't or won't give me. Completely distinct from the other 4 things.
Yeah.
But they all get bundled together under the same umbrella. And parts of them are potentially spicy. Unsolicited critiques can be legitimately like hurtful to a writer. Because it's like, look, you can tell me if you didn't like it, but don't try to tell me how to tell my story, is like a legitimate, you know, counter argument to that kind of critique. But it does get bundled together. And also, when you're dissecting a story, you can also be critiquing it. You can be like, they did this, I think they were aiming for this, I think it's not as effective as it would have been if they had done this instead. Which is why I think this is a space that it's not healthy for the creator to go into, because this is not intended for them. It's not actually like an open letter to the creator of this story. Your version is dog shit, here's how I would do it. And like like, I understand the appeal, but that's just asking for clicks. That's just what that's for, you know?
This actually, this dovetails really nicely into the Aurora fanfic I wrote, where instead of a sword, Kendall is actually a rocket launcher. Tynan went down like a bitch in my version.
the story, if the magic weapon is a rocket, you know that meme where it's like the story as written, and it's a huge thick tome, and it's like the story if character has a gun, and it's like a little thin pamphlet. Yeah, it's exactly that. And then I can just speedrun to Space Aurora, and everything is fine. Anyway, so I've just been thinking about this a little bit, which I don't know. It feels like a very spicy area I don't necessarily actually want to go into, but I wanted to clear up my thoughts on it because, you know, a lot of what I do in Trope Talks is story dissection, and I was seeing in some of the online space of criticism things that I did not want to be part of. So I was kind of like, am I like, okay, do I need to reevaluate anything? I'm not like aiming to hurt any writers by being like, I think the story did this, but like Blue, you brought up Tomska's Law. Anything you say online, anything you say online will be seen by the person it's about, usually within the first 24 hours. Like, I don't write my videos as if the creators of the shows I'm talking about are going to see them. You know, I generally say nice things about them, but still, like, when I did the Powerhouses video and there's like a whole 4-minute segment about Leverage, someone on Twitter was like, hey, John Rogers, creator of Leverage, did you see this video? And he was like, I did. It was good. And I was like, Jesus Christ, I wasn't ready for this. Like, that didn't go anywhere further than that. But I was like, I did not write that video with the assumption that the showrunner was going to fucking see it. You know? And I can't write videos like that. That'd drive me up the wall. And nobody
It would be paralyzing. Also, real quick, I did not actually write an Aurora fanfic. That was sarcasm.
No, Blue is joking.
A couple people thought I was being serious. No, that was a joke. That was a joke. As we all know,
this is a day where everybody tells the truth all the time, forever. I haven't seen Kung Fu Panda 4 yet. I wanna, but like I haven't yet. Also, I haven't heard like great things about it. Comment Biblaridian. When you're working on a video or any creative endeavor, how do you tell when it's reached the point of being good enough to be considered finished? Asking for a friend. we do kind of have the benefit of our video production line basically being like, when every part of it has a visual, it's basically done.
Yeah.
At least on my end,
rule.
because I don't tend to do like many overlay animations. So the process is like script it. When I'm happy with it, I record it. Cut that down to size, draw or consolidate visuals for it. And when every part of it has a visual, I go through and soundtrack it, which in Trotos's case is very quick, and in other cases can be a little bit finicky. And then I'm like, cool, good enough, and I throw it out there. But it is really a vibes judgment, and the fact that our videos are at this point a very streamlined process kind of helps that, because it's like I'm not going to go in and add a ton of motion graphics or explosion effects most of the time. Like if I have a visual gag, I usually add that early so I don't need to remember later. Anyway.
Yeah, usually like when I'm doing a video, I go through all the various steps. Like, you do your research until, and I gave a talk about this at the library in Baltimore when I was there for VidCon. I talked about basically the process of writing the videos, doing the research and writing, where I first research until I have my main narrative thread, and then I keep researching until I no longer have any questions, and then that's when I have enough information to write the script. And I've gotten the sense, like you said, Red, from doing this enough times that it's like, okay, I feel like this is about done. For editing, which is the part where I theoretically could keep going forever, I basically edit the video to get it functional, go back and do a pass to add like the music and stuff, and then I give it one more look, and if anything jumps out at me then, that's the last chance for anything to go in. Otherwise it's like, all right, cool. If the idea didn't come to me in the 2 weeks I spent working on this video, I'm not gonna go wringing my hands about it until I eventually think of something. It had its chance. The idea did not materialize. Cool, done, print, ship it, kind of thing. So,
yep.
Yeah.
Oh man. Yeah, but it's very much a personal vibes thing, and it really depends on the specific type of video. Like the detailed diatribes are a little bit different because they already have full visuals because we already have a slideshow going into it. But then it's like I want to go through and add footage to punch it up, and that could potentially be days to weeks of work of like if I wanted to painstakingly stitch in every slice of like Batman footage I wanted, that could take ages and ages. But in most cases, like with the detailed diatribes, I'll usually only add visuals if we're talking about something that isn't already represented on the slide, or if we mention a very specific line or scene, I'll be like, I can throw that in.
Or like if the slide's been up for like 5 minutes, it's like, okay, let's get some clips in here. And that's something that I'm dealing with right now. I'm currently editing a detailed diatribe, and I have to be like, all right, how much footage am I going to cut in here? And that's essentially the question that I'm going to answer tomorrow. I went through as I was editing the audio, and I got all the slides in place, and I blocked out like, okay, I think I want this visual here. I think I want this visual here. Okay, we talk about this. I can grab like a trailer from that thing to talk about that here to represent it, so I don't need to go like game capturing something painstakingly for like 2 minutes of footage. I can just grab the trailer. It's representative enough. That's why they're trailers. And then I think that's going to be it, and that's going to be good, and I'll just wipe my hands and be done. Great.
Sorry.
Clap, fantastic.
There's a question that I don't want to rant about, but I might, which is, does the dragon from the Fable of the Dragon Tyrant fit Tolkien's criteria for a quote-unquote proper dragon? And I'm inclined to say no, only because of how profoundly I hate that story.
Oh, cool. I am not familiar with it at all.
I wasn't either, but somebody on Tumblr asked me about it, and so I looked it up and read it, and I was like, oh, this is a cute little story, and then like by like the end of paragraph 1, I was like, oh, this is an extremely ham-fisted allegory attempting to persuade me that biological immortality is a realistic thing that we should be turning all of our medical and scientific research towards pursuing.
Oh.
Fucking cool. And I read through the rest of it, and I was like, this isn't getting better, and then at the very end, the writer was like, in case you didn't get it, this is about how biological immortality should be the thing we are pursuing because death is scary. And if death were a really big dragon that we were just feeding people to, you would agree with me. And it's like, yeah, it's crazy how things kind of change if you act like they are completely different and unrelated things. It's just,
yeah,
it's very much like Baby's first allegory, and it frustrated me to read. And the thing is, Tolkien's version is like, it has to be like it's been a little while since I brushed up on his exact phrasing, but it's like he's got to be extremely sorry. Just dislodged the earbud with my mic on it. I hope that didn't horribly offend the audiophiles in the audience. it's super relevant to the plot and extremely powerful and monstrous. And it's like, yeah, technically, but it also like sucks total shit. So I kind of don't want to give it that like that accolade, you know.
I I
Um,
do want to say, and to Adam's point of Tolkien's criteria for a proper dragon are also really dumb. My thoughts on it aren't quite that strong, but a criteria for a proper dragon that has a list of two, which is Fafnir and my dragon Smaug, is not useful as a prescriptive dragon creating device. It is also abundantly
yeah,
a product of being at the beginning of the fantasy literature like revolution. I think if Tolkien was around now, he would have different thoughts from having seen so many more dragons in literature. So it is not stupid and useless, but it's also not the be all end all of dragon taxonomy.
well, absolutely. But the thing is, I also think Tolkien wouldn't hold himself up as a authority on what determines whether or not a dragon is like real. The thing is, he did like his fair share of folklore studies. You know, like he wrote that essay on fairy stories that I referenced in a recent video that is a Small Mammal Scary World, because he also talks about beast fables in that, which is the ones where it's like talking animals. And he's like, yeah, you know, fairy stories can be very grown up. Beast fables are usually more childlike, but it kind of depends. Um, and the thing is, I think his definition of a proper dragon is interesting. And I think I like that he's drawing a distinction between a dragon and just a monster shaped like a dragon. Especially because he would have been dealing with a lot of folk tales that are like, this is a great beast, a mighty dragon, and it's just like a medieval dragon, which is just a mishmash of different animals, and it gets taken down really quick. And it's like, well, sure, it's a dragon, but is it a dragon? And like, I I feel like in my old trope talk on dragons, I kind of came to a similar conclusion where it's like anything can be a dragon because a dragon is less an archetype, or yeah, it's less an archetype and more like an extremely powerful, threatening thing. It can look like anything. It can have any of these powers because it's filling a role in the story. You know, it's got some rules applied to it, but it's kind of more of like a category, like fairy or demon, than it is a specific kind of critter. Um, Sorry, Blue. Why'd you say whoops in chat? Did
Oh,
we do anything
because
wrong?
Adam said, "Is Fafnir?" Or Adam said the dragon in Beowulf counts, and I was like, "Is Fafnir not the Beowulf dragon?" Asking for a friend who
Oh,
hasn't read it in
buddy.
years, and Adam was like, "No, Fafnir is the Volsunga Saga dragon." So
Yeah.
Sigurd was like, "Oh, whoops, haha." So that was my. I forgot that Fafnir
Okay.
is not the Beowulf dragon. I just got them confused.
Great. Yeah. I did want to say in chat, I know that I think they said it's CGP Grey, like adapted Fable of the Dragon Tyrant. I've never seen that video. I'm not commenting on the video. I'm commenting on the story it's adapted from, which I read through and thought was extremely weak writing. Not to break it down in the same criticism structure as before, but I think it fails to effectively accomplish its goal of convincing the audience that death is a great enemy that we should, in fact, be flinging all our resources at, simply because I've seen that story too many times and it never goes well. People throughout history have wanted to find a way to become immortal, and everyone thinks their generation is going to be the one to do it because the alternative is kind of existentially frightening. But everyone learns to deal with it. And the thing is, the story's like, yeah, everyone learns to deal with it because they're stupid. Unlike me, the enlightened guy who suggested we build a big rocket to shoot death with. Like, I'm not trying to be facetious, and I know this is a slightly harsh read of the story, but even in like the best faith possible, it's like this is just a hey, what if story. This doesn't, and the thing is, like, the story, the little epilogue thing where the writer takes the mic and is like, in case you didn't get my extremely subtle allegories, like, he's like, now I'm of course not saying that biological immortality is like super like realistic, but I am saying that science is pretty cool and I think we could do it. You know, if we put all our heads together, we would never have to die. But at the same time, he's like, of course, prolonging old age would be an existential nightmare. That would suck. And it's like, oh, so you don't want to live forever. You just want to be in your 20s forever. That's a completely different existential thing. And it's just, it really like, it really exposes the underlying fallacy of the story. Like, okay, you actually haven't thought this through as much as you think you have. You just come to the conclusion, death's scary. Congratulations on fulfilling baby's first existential crisis. We all figure that out eventually. And the conclusion is, well, surely we could do something about this if we all work together. Science is amazing now. We can do all kinds of cool things. But I don't want to be old forever. That would suck. So just figure it out. Just make me hot forever. It's just like, man, I get it. I completely understand the underlying logic. I've thought this through on multiple occasions. I have 2 separate videos about different slices of this discussion, with the immortality one and the personifying death one. Like, I get it. I really do. But the story is not effective at communicating its theoretical message. And instead, you just see how absolutely blatantly obvious and kind of condescending it's being, where it's like, and there's like a very specific grievance I have with that story, which I know is an uncharitable read, but it really did frustrate me, which is that, like, in the Fable of the Dragon Tyrant, they bring up how, like, there's this horrifying machine, basically. The whole society turns into a mechanism to feed people to the dragon, which is, of course, a metaphor for death. It's like, oh, we're just shoving people by the tens of thousands down the gullet of this hungry dragon. And it's like, oh, of course, infrastructure pops up around this, like people who like comfort the people who are about to be sacrificed to the dragon. And I was like, so in this analogy, those are like palliative care workers and medical professionals who have one of the most grueling and thankless jobs in the entire world, fulfilling a fundamental compassionate human instinct to try and ease people's inevitable passing. Those are the people who in this version are cogs in an unfeelingly cruel genocide machine. That's what we're doing? Like, it's an uncharitable read, but that is the kind of thing you have to think through if your entire story is allegory. And they just didn't? And that pissed me off. So, anyway.
I have fully lost the thread because I do not know what story we're talking about.
It's not good. You can read it if you want.
I won't.
I'd be interested to hear your thoughts. Okay, never mind. Yeah, I have a Tumblr post about it somewhere because somebody asked me about it, but Tumblr's search function is garbage, so you probably won't be able to find it. Anyway.
People are commenting about Roku's Basilisk. Roku's Basilisk is stupid, and you can tell the Basilisk I said that.
Tell the Basilisk I said he's a little bitch.
Yeah.
Oh, is somebody gonna put me in the Torment Nexus about it? Boo-hoo. Whoops.
Get in line after climate change, you lizardy fuck. Anyway, what else can we talk about? Someone was commenting about Blue Eye Samurai. I loved Blue Eye Samurai. It was great. Didn't have anything that struck me for making a detailed diatribe because a few videos that I saw already hit the nail on the head way better than I could have, but it was great. There's a really good the backdrop video from Second Wind that went into the cultural influences in that and why it feels so compellingly split between 2 worlds and how they really get the most out of the setting. I like that a lot. Where a central plot point in that analysis is the Metallica in Japanese is pretty central to that argument, which rules. But oh, hi Cleo. Hi baby.
Yes.
Cleo's very excited that we're home. Hi, little miss. I know I was out for a little while. That's okay.
Leo jump scared me twice while I was there. But she's so cute, I can't be mad.
I know.
Anyway, Blue Eye Samurai fucking slaps. I also obviously want to talk about it because it rules. But the problem is we run into this every time we have something that's too good, where it's like, what kind of detailed diatribe could we make about this? It's just good. It's just really fucking good.
Yeah.
I think, honestly, what I love about Blue Eye Samurai is how much of it is just profoundly like, yeah, I support women's rights and women's wrongs.
Yeah.
I think that Mizu should kill more people for less reasons. Oh man, she's so interesting.
I think she should have Sparta kicked that guy into the spike pit.
yeah, fuck that guy. I don't know. I think it's very interesting. I should rewatch it, honestly, because it was one of those things where I was like, this looks kind of interesting. I'll throw on the first episode, and then it was like 8 hours later. I was like, oh no.
That's kind of what I did with Castlevania Nocturne. I binged it in a night, which is rare for me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, especially since Castlevania Nocturne is fine, but like, it's kind of like Castlevania Season 1, and that it's a lot of setup and not a ton of payoff yet,
but
which I saw people complaining about.
Unlike Castlevania Season 1, it is twice as long, which makes it a little bit tougher to get through. But I think a lot of the complaints were uncharitable. Red, I won't step on your toes, and you were going to say something. I interrupted you.
Oh, no, I saw some people complaining about how Castlevania Nocturne was like not as good as the entirety of Castlevania that we already got, which is like, yeah, it's season 1. You remember they did this with Castlevania season 1? Literally, the only thing that happened in that season was the Trevor and Alucard super gay fight, which was awesome. Oh god, excuse me. But like, it's literally just 4 episodes of setup and Trevor being drunk and kind of miserable for most of it, and then a Nocturne. Like, the cast is twice as big, and they got so much shit going on, and a lot of it is really interesting. And then I don't know. The thing is, I think the main issue that people had with it, even though they weren't like keying into it, is that the bad guy kind of sucks. Bathory is nowhere near as charismatic as Dracula.
Not at all.
And nowhere near as interesting as the thing is, like, because even season 4 of Castlevania didn't have Dracula because of events that happened. But like, season 1 is really good. Season 2, really good. Season 3, kind of shaky for a lot of reasons. And I mainly think the problem is they just didn't know what to do with Alucard's half of the story. So they were like, give him a couple characters who have a threesome and then just do an absolute heel turn and immediately start trying to kill him for no reason.
Yeah.
Sounds good, gang.
Yeah.
But I thought the plot with like the corrupted church was unbelievably cool.
Yeah.
I loved just how like the slow burn horror of it all, and like it kind of felt in the same way that the rest of the show feels like a D&D campaign. That season felt like the D&D campaign where the players didn't pick up the DM's hints in time to prevent the tragedy.
Ooh.
And then just kind of had to deal with it. And I liked that. I liked that a lot. And I loved the energy. I like how we never really get an explanation for what the fuck the Infinite Corridor even is and how it works. I like it when eldritch horrors don't get over-explained. And the thing is, like, hot take, I liked Death in season 4. I thought he was fun. It was a little weird that he said the fuck word when he was in big skeleton mode, but like, other than that, I thought it was great.
I just wish they put some stank on his voice after he turns into the big skeleton, but other than that, I liked the reveal.
Yeah, make him a little more like Venom-ish. That would have been fun.
Yeah.
But I thought it was good, and I was so impressed that they actually gave it a fucking happy ending,
Yeah.
which I was not expecting.
No.
Because I called a shot and I was wrong. They did this on purpose. They did this to me on purpose. I know it.
To you, Red. They did it to you.
Yeah, specifically, me personally, because when the poster dropped, and it's like everyone's like in action poses except for Trevor, who is looking wistfully back over his shoulder with an uncharacteristically gentle smile while the Belmont crest on his back armor explodes off of him. I was like, oh, he's dead. And when the season started, I was like, I'm calling it right now. If Sypha is pregnant, Trevor is dead. Because then they don't need him anymore. And then they did it. She was like, I'm pregnant in the second to last episode. And I was like, oh boy, here it comes.
Yeah.
So they fucking got me. And I loved it. I was not expecting to get the ungrimdark swerve from the serious the characters say fuck now show.
I need to go back and rewatch that because it was truly so good. And honestly, the reason that like even without Dracula, Carmilla was a compelling villain because she's just a mess. And that was fascinating in a way where Ursula Bathory is terrifying by way of what one character says about her.
But also, she's got no personality.
And then she's completely flat otherwise, that she basically just shows up in a chariot with almost no fanfare, which is like, oh, that's her? Okay, cool. Big chariot, I guess, neat.
Yeah. And her haircut is stupid.
Yeah.
Looks like an onion.
Her Catgirl makeover was a little goofy. But
yeah,
like
her big plan was to culturally appropriate Egypt and go from there. Which is admittedly very on brand for the themes of the show about colonialism and vampirism being the same thing.
You see, Richter, all your plans will come to naught, for I am a Kawaii Neko and you're fucked, kiddo. And that's a quote.
Terrible.
You can go back, rewind the footage. She says that. She says that.
Yeah, verbatim.
Yeah, it sounds even weirder in the French dub too.
God, you know what? I'm really hoping that in season 2, Richter says, "Die, monster! You don't belong in this world." I want that whole scene to play out like it does in the game.
Oh my god!
I want his voice actor to give us nothing.
But I liked Nocturne. I'm really excited to see where it goes. The historical vibes on that show are so much stronger than they were in the original Castlevania, especially the earlier seasons. Seasons 3 and 4, they actually get a little bit more like sense of place in the world where you actually like see what's going on. where like Tagovishta and all the other cities, whatever the hell they're called, the interchangeable destroyed towns, all kind of blend together into a soup of just like generic medieval nothing, which is frustrating because in actual 1476 Wallachia, Transylvania, it was ruled by the Ottomans. It was a vassal state under the Ottomans. So the idea of this like Judge Claude Frollo ass 1700s Catholic priest bad guy in Orthodox Christian territory under the Ottomans is like, come on, gang. Like, you set this in a specific time and place. Give us something a little more realistic here. Whereas Nocturne is very grounded in the historical vibes and meaning of the French Revolution, to go so far as to paint colonialism as an allegory for vampirism is really, really potent. Yeah. That's so good.
And vice versa.
And yeah, exactly. Yeah. It goes both ways. So I'm really excited to see what they do with that in a way where in the beginning, I liked the original Castlevania seasons because the characters were good, but the setting was pretty fucking weak, all things considered. Mm-hmm. So I like what they've done here groundwork-wise a lot more.
I think I actually, because I watched Nocturne all in one night before you did, and I think I told you, like, I think you'll like this show more than I do, because it is aggressively historical in its setting. Like, it is very specific and like, here's where and when we are and what that means about the backstories of the characters we're about to meet, which I thought was extremely interesting. And I don't know, there's a lot I liked about it. I thought the animation was pretty. It's self-indulgent. I liked Richter Belmont's anime power-up. The power of believing in himself was really all he needed. Like, it was fucking stupid, but whatever. And I like how the show is willing to, like, call that out. Like, it was weak, but at the same time, kind of funny how he tells his grandpa Just, it's like, yeah, sucks that it didn't work that way for you, man. I mean, like, given how tragic your backstory is. Anyway, I'm gonna go, like, hang out with my buds now, and Just is like, cool, all right, man.
Yeah.
Richter's such a little shit. Can't wait to see him get his absolute shit pushed in when he can actually fight back. I'm
really excited to see what they do with it. And Alucard shows up now.
The main thing is I'm not certain where they're going to go, because someone in chat mentioned this, and I agree. I think that Bathory is a fake out. I think that she's not going to last. The problem is they powered her up too early, you know?
That is fair.
She already got her her Catgirl mode. She already started the Eclipse. I'm assuming it's some kind of magical turbo eclipse, because those of you keeping track of the current projected eclipse coming April 8th will know that the path of totality of an eclipse is extremely narrow, which means Elizabeth Bathory has produced Eternal Night in roughly 1/5 of France, and that's it. So I'm assuming this is some kind of magical everywhere eclipse. But anyway,
the English Channel and the northern suburbs of Paris are freaking the fuck out, but the southern arrondissements are like, ¿qué? Quoi?
Yeah. Oh, the sun, she is a weird shape tonight. Anyway, yeah. So I just think it's
Zut alors, where's the moon?
I cannot find this nigger bastard. Anyway, I can't. We gotta stop. I don't think Bathory is going to last more than one season, and frankly, I would be surprised if she made it to the mid-season finale of season 2, because I think she's going to get bigger fished. I think they have to give us Dracula, which is worrying because they gave him such a good, like, happy resolution. But the problem is you cannot have any of the later Castlevania games without Dracula as a recurring antagonist. That's literally the formula. Like, you can get weird with it when he starts getting, reincarnated as Japanese teenagers? I don't know. But, like,
I have no idea.
Magenta is the resident Castlevania expert, and I don't have her on the horn right now. But my point is, like, you need Dracula. Dracula is the best villain in this show. We tried with Carmilla, and she was great, but what made her work is that she couldn't be Dracula, you know? She had this, like, delusion of grandeur of, like, we're going to rule this whole place. And it's like, Dracula works because he doesn't try that. He doesn't do that. Yeah. He'll occasionally go out and wreak havoc and summon demon armies, but, like, he doesn't try to single-handedly hold an entire country and be like, I'll just pick and choose anybody to nosh from there. And, like, I don't know, I think Carmilla was such an interesting bad guy because she was messy. She was, like, feral. She was a huge bitch, and I loved it. Bathory has no personality. She's just evil. And the thing is, when they kept saying Vampire Messiah, I was like, the fuck is Alucard doing here? Because that was what they called him in Castlevania.
Yeah.
So, the thing is, they can't make Alucard the bad guy. Of course they can't. He's our boy. He's Alucard.
Yeah.
But I think it would be interesting if there's the Vampire Messiah thing feels like a twist on the formula. And if I had to fanfic my way into what I would pitch for season 2, not saying they're going to do this, it's just what my trope auto-completing brain is doing. Because they were like, we need a Vampire Messiah to cause Eternal Night. I think they might need Alucard to bring Dracula back again or something like that. They're like, we need the Vampire Messiah so we can bring the real big boys out to play. It would be a little bit generic, hence why I am predicting it with my trope brain. But it would work, it would be dramatic, and it would get Bathory out of the way, because she's very boring.
Yeah.
And it seems like her only gimmick is that she is extremely tough and kind of... And they tried that with Dracula. It worked with Dracula. But in Dracula, he was taking damage when they were fighting him. Like, it felt like the boss fight, where you're, like, wearing him down.
Yeah.
You know? He does the big fireball, and you Alucard that shit back at him, and it's great.
Yeah, with the fight with Bathory, like, they couldn't touch her. Nothing did anything. And that, it's like, okay, so as soon as I get the right item, this boss fight's going to be super easy. I just don't have, like, the right gear score yet.
Yeah. It'll be interesting to see what they do with, what's her name? The person who's becoming a vampire right at the end of the season.
Not Maria, but Maria's mom.
Yeah.
Yeah. Her.
Because the thing is, right, because we've never actually seen somebody in the process of becoming a vampire in this show. Like, they kept bringing it up with, if Dracula really loved Lisa, he would have turned her into an immortal vampire, you know, and be cool and sexy like us forever. I think this is going to be the hard...
Tara,
right. I think this is going to be the hard and painful demonstration of why he didn't do that, because she's definitely not going to be still in there. She's going to be a fully different person and definitely evil. But it'll be interesting to see how that works.
I want Vampire Napoleon. That's my take.
No. I mean, maybe.
I just want to see that fucker die again.
Actually, that would make sense, because they exiled him to an island and he wouldn't be able to leave.
Yeah. Well, that
Mon
comes
Dieu,
later.
c'est running water. Anyway. Oh, boy. But yeah, the problem is, I think they need Dracula back as the final boss, but they gave him too good of an arc, so they're going to need to do a bunch of work to make him evil again.
No, let Blue cook. No, I don't think that would actually work well. It would be shock factor, and then it would be like, oh wait, this is stupid, one episode later.
Yeah.
Because there's so much of the rest of the world that's tied up in the French Revolution. I'm curious to see what else they would pull in, because there's clearly a very wide board that we've only seen a narrow slice of. There's a lot of stuff they could do. And again, like us talking about, like, Ursula Bathory's kind of boring. They could easily, mid-season bigger fish her. Is, Red, if I can remember your 5-layer scheme of criticism, is partially like our feedback, our review, and then pivoting to, okay, this doesn't exist yet, but it will exist. Here's what we would just throw out as, like, here's an option for how to handle this. But we recognize, like, they're working very hard on telling a good story, and whenever that story is ready to be shown, we're sure it's going to be better than whatever we can come up with. That's the same thing that happened when we spent years and years and years thinking of what they're going to do with the sequel to Breath of the Wild, and it turned out to be Tears of the Kingdom, and it was a fantastic story that we never could have predicted. So all of our, like, wouldn't it be cool if they did this? Vampire Napoleon, kill the Catgirl vampire is like, okay, we're having fun here, but we're not pretending like we're better writers than the writers of the show. We want to make it abundantly clear that is a line we are not crossing. And
that it is interesting to theorize about where things are going, but I'm always wary about doing it too much, which is partially why we don't do videos about that, really, where, like, there's a lot of long form stories where we keep up with it, and it's like, oh boy, they could go in all kinds of interesting directions. I'm excited to see where it goes. But, like, part of the reason why we tried not to over theorize about Tears of the Kingdom was because I wanted to be pleasantly surprised, because I trusted that they would pleasantly surprise me. I didn't want to be too busy being like, oh, they didn't do the thing I thought they were going to do with the Triforce, and they didn't, like, they didn't time loop it. And I mean, I'm fucking glad they didn't time loop it. That was one of the theories where I was like, please don't make it a time loop, for the love of God. Let there be forward progress for once. But I know that was a very popular theory when the trailers first dropped, because of course all the imagery is like the sort of dual Ouroboros kind of thing. Anyway, but yeah, I think one of the things that I really liked about Castlevania Season 4 is things I wasn't expecting, which, because of the way my brain works, is kind of a rare occurrence in a lot of long form stories. I'm not trying to be like,
Ooh, Red, hold on, you're cutting out for a sec. Pause, Red.
No.
Your audio's cutting. It was fine, and then you just started roboting for a sec. Go again, if you could.
Hello, can you hear me? Is it coming through smooth?
This is better. Try again.
Okay, good. Man, I hope the Wi-Fi is not bad. I can do this on not Wi-Fi, but I might drop off the call for a little while. Yeah, that was definitely Wi-Fi. Chat totally froze on my end.
No, you're better. You're better.
Okay, good. Sorry about that. So what I was saying is that, like, it is a rare treat for me for a long-form story to take turns that I'm not expecting. Because of the way my brain works and because of the way I engage with stories, this doesn't happen very often. And I'm not trying to be like, I'm so huge brain, that like nothing ever surprises me. But if you have a feel for the tropes and you have a feel for the way that twists are telegraphed, you can kind of start seeing a lot of them coming. They're saying it's bad again.
It dipped down, but then it got back. So I don't know where you're pacing around, but wherever you were like 30 seconds ago.
Not.
Oh, interesting.
I'm sitting. You know what? Okay, hold on. I don't trust the Wi-Fi, so I'm going to drop off of it.
Okay.
And we're just going to do this on... So I might drop off the call a little bit.
Okay.
Give me just a second.
You're stuck with me now, chat. It's
okay,
me, boy. I'm the PS5 coming to you inside your brain.
Listen to me, boy.
Oh, my God.
Okay. So, can you hear me?
Yeah, you're good.
Okay, good. I'm off the Wi-Fi. I still have Wi-Fi on where I'm seeing chat, but the call is just 5G, and that's okay?
Yeah, you're good. You sound great. You're doing great, sweetie.
Thank you. How much of my take made it through the roboting?
The take made it. It was just a little garbled, but it was good. You don't need to repeat it.
Okay, I don't need to use the phrase "huge brain" again. That's good.
Yes.
But yes. So what I really liked about Castlevania Season 4 was that the ending, I had predicted it, and they had baited and switched me. I was wrong, and I loved that, because I was like, yeah, they're gonna kill him, and it's gonna be a bittersweet ending, and instead they didn't kill him, and it was just a good ending. Things were good. So when we're like, if we were extrapolating from here, this is how the story could go. It's not a serious attempt to predict it, and it's not like they have to do this. It's a fun game I like playing with stories I'm, watching, where it's like, I wonder where they're gonna take this,
Yeah.
Oh man, excuse me.
No, you're okay.
Woof. But yeah, I'm excited for more Castlevania Nocturne, and I generally reserve judgment of stories before they really get going, and this entire season was very much setup, so I'm excited to see who the real main bad guy is.
And the fact that the setup season is so good is an impressive accomplishment. It was not better than the best of the last show. It wasn't better than, season 2 of OG Castlevania, but there's no way it could have been. So the fact that it was enjoyable at all on its own is quite a treat. It was a hard lurch to get through. There's a lot of world building they did in this one. They had to get through a lot of exposition.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, they needed to get us invested in a whole new generation of heroes, and Richter is not the most innately likable boy. Like, he's fun, he's fine, but he's also a little bit of a shit. And, like, what I love about him is that he's got the perfect blend of Trevor and Sypha's characteristics, where it's like, he's got Trevor's level of, like, physical combat competence and general, like, badassery, and he's got Sypha's magic, although he can't do it at the beginning, and her, like, casual snark, which I really liked. Because the best thing about their dynamic when they were hanging out together is that, like, Sypha would always be, like, shooting the shit and pointing out certain absurdities and just being very frank and casual about things, where Trevor would be too jaded to quip very much.
Yeah.
Yeah. Whew.
Now I'm trying to think of what else to talk about. I know we pivoted pretty swiftly off of Blue Eye Samurai, but there wasn't, unfortunately, that much to say. It's so good that it really does speak for itself. If you haven't seen it, it's definitely worth a watch. And I'm really interested to see what they do with season 2, because having plots playing out in 2 very different places is all I'll say, is tricky from a storytelling perspective. But of course, Castlevania managed to do that in seasons 3 and 4, with plots happening in very different places that weren't even touching each other in terms of geography. So I'm interested. I'm very interested to see where they go with it.
You know what? I do have a specific point that I really liked about Blue Eye Samurai. And I mentioned it earlier, which is just how much of a mess Mizu is. But, like, specifically, I like that she is motivated by spite. And we see her make some progress towards, like, becoming a slightly better, more trusting and healthy person. Mm-hmm. And then we also see her backslide hard. Like, she is just truly allowed to be... And the thing is, she has all the reason in the world to act and think the way that she does about herself, about her place in the world, about what she is. Like, it's rare that we see a protagonist starting from the point of, they called me a monster, so I will be a monster. Like, it's rare to see that as your main character.
Yeah.
You know? And
usually
I like
that is presented as villain motivation.
Uh-huh. And I like how throughout the season we see her get all these outs. We see her make small amounts of progress of like, oh, okay, I can accept that, you know, the metal must be impure to be stronger, yada, yada, yada. I can, like, that's okay, I'll teach you, is, like, a really important moment in her development. But, like, she doesn't say that to the character she's thinking of, you know? She thinks it, but then later, the dynamic she has with that character doesn't work out great for her. Mm-hmm. And then at the end, it's like, we really do see her in full, like, demon mode, burning a city to the ground, just for the sake of her vengeance. And it's like, this slaps. I want to see where she goes from here. I want to see her get better, but I also kind of want to see if she can figure out how to get worse, you know? She's just sympathetic enough that I'm invested in both directions of her arc.
Yeah. So either way, it's compelling.
Yeah, definitely.
And then, of course, the Metallica remix, not a remix, but the Metallica redo, the new version, is really good. I do have to mention I was so abnormally strong that the other townspeople called me a monster equals so many enemy protagonists is true, but none of those people are actually monsters. You know? All those people are like, I was too powerful, too strong and cool. It's like that fucking Escaflowne thing where he's like, I have beautiful white feathery wings. They're hideous and I'm a monster. And it's like, no, your beautiful angelic wings are beautiful. And he's like, really? Like, that's mostly what you get with these anime boys, where it's like, oh, people were mean to him. They didn't understand him. He was outcast for being too strong or too pretty or whatever. But then, like, they're just a fundamentally decent person who's occasionally a bit of a grump. Mizu is like War Crimes McGee over here. And I absolutely love that for her. And also, in context, her feeling the way that she does is very grounded. It's not like, I have blue anime hair and everyone thinks that I suck. It's like, no, in the historical setting that this story is taking place in, the kind of person that Mizu is culturally conditioned to be viewed as monstrous. So she has a very different kind of experience than, like, the boys at school said that I was ugly, even though it's like this person was drawn to be as beautiful as possible. It's like, no, Mizu's got a very different backstory to generic anime, like, I don't even know what word I'm looking for.
But I think I mentioned this when I'd watched through the show and you hadn't started it yet. I was like, yeah, the main character, part of her, like, backstory is that, like, she's, you know, in the, is it Meiji era or Edo period? Sorry.
It would be the historical... Edo, because Meiji is after opening up.
Yes, thank you. It's like she's in Edo period Japan, and, like, a lot of her motivation is that she's like, she's half white, and you're like, oh, is she trying to find, like, one of the 5 people who could possibly be her dad? And I was like, literally, yes.
Because it was like, yes, Blue Eye Samurai. What could that be about?
Yeah. And the thing is, like, Edo period, again, just like Castlevania Nocturne, and these shows came out so close to each other, but, like, they appeal to you in exactly the same way of, like, this is an extremely clear historical setting where, like, shit is happening. So, like, let's let that shit happen in a very specific way. And, like, the way they talk about I was really interested in what they did with Akemi, I think is her name. Yeah. Everyone's names are feud. I thought the way they did her was very interesting because, of course, initially it's like, oh, the restrictive rules of society are shitty to women. I want to be free of them. And it's like, yeah, of course. Like, Mizu is the demonstration of what happens if you basically just reject all that wholesale and try to do something completely different. In her case, by, you know, pretending to be a man so that she doesn't have to deal with any of the various shit that she would have to go through. Like, she couldn't travel alone as an unattended woman in Edo period Japan. And then you see Akemi doing the, like, the spunky rebel princess, I want to run away thing. And then by the end, she's like, hold on, if I play this game, I can get the power I've never had.
Yeah.
And it goes from like, I'll run away and perhaps cut off my hair and become a pirate, to being like, no, I want to be great. I thought that was so interesting.
Oh, yeah.
Like, they are doing some very nuanced things with these characters when the setup for each of their archetypes is a very stock thing. And the thing is, the stock Rebel Princess story does not end that way. It doesn't end with the princess being like, actually, hold on, I can figure this out.
Yeah. No, I really liked how they played that for Akemi's story, and we're not going to get into specific because you all really should go watch this for yourselves. It is truly that good. But they basically like, and I think they kind of do this with Mizu's story as well, where they kind of get to an almost like character arc endpoint in the middle of the season, and it's like, nope. They still got to go further. In Mizu's case, it's like a little bit of backsliding. But in Akemi's case, it's like, okay, so she got out of her initially constraining circumstance to figure some stuff out, has learned, taken that information as useful data points, and is still figuring this out, and eventually comes to a more nuanced conclusion than just, oh, I need to get out of this physical circumstance. She ends up essentially in one metric back where she started, but with so much more information about how to play the game and how to exist in this world in a way that she can actually feel powerful and great and satisfied and free in a way that her initial situation and even her midpoint situation would not have afforded her. That's really good writing.
But also her shitty father is out of the picture, so she actually can in some way take control of her life now.
That's great. We like that.
It seems like a lot of her realization is like, oh, my husband isn't a sadist, he's actually just weak. And oh, my father is not a problem anymore. And oh, I actually have more authority than my mother-in-law, so even though she's, being shitty to me, I can do something about that. Okay, like, she's figuring out how to play the game rather than just be like, no, I don't want to play, it isn't fair. Because the thing is, it isn't fair. This is one of the most, like, famously restrictive and misogynistic periods of history and anywhere in the world. Like, we see this explicitly framed with Mizu as contrast. It's like, yes, Mizu has rejected this to go off and become an incredibly cool badass. And she's got a lot of other problems going on, but, like, we're going to focus on the sword fights, okay? It's going to be great. And you look at Akemi and you're like, man, she's got it rough too. If only she could also sword fight. And then you're like, no, hold on. There's ways to make this work. Like, I don't know. I see a lot of discussion of this, especially in fantasy stories and like fantasy writing circles, where it's like, if you're writing kind of a pseudo-medieval setting, it's very tempting to be like, oh, a woman's traditional place is like this very restricted thing. You like stay in the house or you have babies or whatever. And then you get this warrior princess who's like, I reject all that. I'm going to wear pants and run away and sword fight. And it's like, that's cool. That's great. I love a warrior princess. I love a Red Sonja type, that kind of thing. But like at the same time, like women lived lives in these periods in history. It wasn't all just like crushing abject unfair misery all the time. Like we look back on it and we're like, that was pretty fucked up and reductive, but like people still had lives,
Yeah.
They still found ways to make it work. There are ways to play the game instead of just, tipping over the board and going and doing your own thing. And we're seeing both of those with Akemi and Mizu. We see playing the game, and we see table flipping and going to do your own thing.
And also,
I thought it was interesting.
It is very interesting, and it gets to something in history as a field of study in general, and Adam can probably point to this in what he's researched as well, but there's the temptation to think that, like, yes, women never had any rights. They didn't actually exist until the 1800s during the early suffrage movement. What
when
a
they
tragedy.
were invented for
women
so
women
Victorians
were
could be worried about their ankles.
Women are a scam by big Victorians to sell you more saucy ankle pics. It's like that's not actually true. Like people have existed all through time, and even though different social groups, whether by race or gender or, whatever other strata you can cut a civilization in half based on, or in quarters or, whatever. People who aren't at the top also existed, and people in restrictive social environments also existed and had agency. Not full rights and freedoms, obviously. That's the benefit of living in, post-suffrage world, is that, like, women can vote now. Great. We love that.
Have your own bank account. That rules,
Yeah, but like even before that, it's not like women were just meek and didn't do anything. Like people still existed, and they still found ways to carve out agency for themselves and carve out ways to have expression and power in systems that typically wouldn't afford them power by playing the game and learning the rules and working with it. And obviously it is so much better that we have moved past that than that needing to do all of that. Like, great, we're modern like good. But it is frustrating when we go back to history and it's like, oh, well, I'm writing a historical story, so women have to all be shitty and powerless and useless because that's historically accurate. Like, no, it's fucking not. Get out.
It's fucking not.
Get out.
I recently, I don't want to go off on this too far because I only read it once and I don't remember all the details, but I recently read an article that came out pretty recently that was like, hey, yeah, we did a little just like, we did more research, and we think that idea that like back in the old persistence hunting Paleolithic hunter-gatherer days, we think that the idea that gender norms were established then is actually bullshit. It kind of seems like women were probably also doing persistence hunting all the time forever. So it's like, I don't know. I just think it's interesting that like people look back in history and they're like, there are a lot of periods in time where women's role in society was artificially restricted. And then they're like, well, that must have been for a really good reason. And it's like, no, it might have just been for a stupid reason. It doesn't need to be a great truth of reality. It might have just been a thing we started doing when the nuclear family started being the way we were raising our kids, you know, that kind of thing. Anyway, I thought it was an interesting, I tend to be wary of bioessentialism in any direction. But it is kind of fun to be like, yeah, we did some of like the actual archaeology and the gene sequencing and the historical stuff. And this might just be bullshit all the way down, actually.